The Australian government has confirmed that President Trump asked Prime Minister Scott Morrison to assist the Justice unearth info regarding the origins of the Mueller investigation. The confirmation came because it was reportable that lawyer General William Barr has met with officers within the UK and Italia. Barr has conjointly sought after the assistance of intelligence officers in these countries. His justice is investigation whether or not Yankee intelligence officers acted fitly within the early stages of the Mueller investigation. An Australian government representative confirmed on Tuesday that Trump ironed Morrison on the Mueller probe. *LIKE in a very statement, Australia has continually been able to assist and join forces with efforts that facilitate shed any lightweight on the matters below investigation. The PM confirmed this readiness yet again in language with the president. Trump, in a very recent telephone to his Australian counterpart, created the pitch at the request of Barr, the NY Times reportable, citing officers aware of the language. It's the second revelation that the president asked a fellow world leader to help in a very domestic political matter that might have an effect on his re-election to the White House, and comes until now another cupboard member has been dragged into the growing political scandal. And in a very any parallel to the growing land scandal, the White House conjointly tried to limit access to transcript of the decision with Morrison to a little cluster of aides. That was an analogous move to however the administration handled Trump's July 25 decision with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, wherever he urged him to analyze Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden. Separately, Secretary of State Microphone Pompeo was unconcealed to own listened in their own decision between Trump and Zelensky. The Wall Street Journal reportable pull him into the growing instrument inquiry that started with the president's request of the Ukrainian president. The decision with Morrison came among weeks of Trump's call to Zelensky, that the president denied was him pressuring the land into serving to catch dirt on one and all his political rivals. Trump referred to as it a perfect decision. Australia's ambassador to Washington Joe Hockey wrote to Barr regarding his investigation into the origins of FBI's probe into Russia in might, providing some clues on once the decision might need been created. The Australian government can use its best endeavours to support your efforts during this matter, he aforementioned in a very might 28 letter. Morrison was in Washington, D.C. earlier this month for a state visit and a complicated state dinner within the garden of the White House, that Barr attended. Neither the White House or the Justice has offered their response. But a political candidate told CNN it absolutely was associate degree acceptable go Barr's behalf to arouse the president to request help from a remote government into a look of the 2016 election, and totally different from the decision with Zelensky. Trump named Barr repeatedly in this decision and urged the Ukrainian leader to figure with Barr and Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer, to probe whether or not Joe Biden was corrupt. Barr was reportable to be angry to own been named within the decision. But his role within the Australian decision failed to seem to cause such concern within the Department of Justice. An official aforementioned Barr asked the president to request the assistance of many countries, together with Australia, in his probe of however the Russia investigation started. Additionally, Barr has command personal conferences overseas with foreign intelligence officers to arouse their facilitate in his probe, the Washington Post reportable. Supporters of Barr and therefore the Trump administration area unit possible to portray this as acceptable conduct, however critics, and people pushing for Trump's instrument, may even see it as associate degree abuse of the lawyer general's power. The lawyer general has spoken to British intelligence officers, and he travelled to Italia last week, wherever he asked Italian officers for help. The latest details regarding Barr's personal involvement within the matter can possibly raise a lot of questions on whether or not he's serving to the White House use subdivision powers to assist the president politically. At the terribly least it'll raise questions on whether or not it's acceptable for the nation's high enforcement officer to be intimately concerned in a very specific investigation. But it'll even be perceived as doing the bidding of his boss, adding to a perception from critics that Barr is acting as Trump's personal lawyer, not within the national interest. Trump pushed for associate degree investigation into however Robert Mueller's probe began and has hoped to discredit the special counsel and his report that found the president failed to interact with Russians within the 2016 election however did create a determination on whether or not Trump tried to hinder justice. Barr determined to not press charges in this matter, citing long-standing justice policy of not charging a sitting president. The lawyer general, earlier this year, declared associate degree investigation of his own into however the Mueller probe started and appointed career lawyer John Durham to steer the inquiry. I assume spying on a political campaign could be a massive deal, Barr told a Senate committee hearing in Gregorian calendar month of this year, noting he did believe spying did occur on the Trump campaign. Cambridge professor Stephen Halper was Associate Degree Federal Bureau of Investigation informant UN agency approached Trump campaign advisors Carter Page, Papadopoulos and surface-to-air missile Frank regarding any potential ties to Russia. In Australia, medicinal drug isn't any longer publicly service. I do not know something in the least regarding conversations Scott Morrison has had with Donald Trump. Currently it isn't the type of issue I am aware about, he told Rudiment Radio National. I had a language with this guy and that I passed on one component of the language to the Americans. There is simply nothing a lot of to that, medicinal drug aforementioned. I an educated person regarding conversations that Scott Morrison has had with the Americans together with President Trump regarding this.